Welcome to Kiki's Talk Buffet. Let's talk it out.
You know that feeling when your day just evaporates in a flurry of emails and minor crises, and at the end of it, you wonder what you actually accomplished that truly mattered?
Oh, definitely. Like you're constantly putting out fires, but never actually building anything lasting.
Exactly that. It's the sensation of being incredibly busy, but maybe not moving the needle on what's genuinely important.
Yeah, it often signals a mismatch,
Yeah.
between where our effort goes and what our real priorities are.
Precisely. And that's the core of what we're diving into today. We want to help you cut through that overwhelm and extract some really powerful, practical principles for taking control.
Taking control of your focus and energy.
Right. One of our listeners actually reached out wanting a way to get a solid understanding of self-management and prioritization, not just theory, but, the stuff you can actually use.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We've got some fantastic source material to draw from excerpts looking at effective management and personal organization.
It really offers a kind of roadmap for becoming the pilot of your own life, both professionally and personally.
Absolutely. We're going to unpack some really game-changing ideas.
Things like really understanding the difference between, say, leading yourself versus just managing your tasks.
And the surprising power of your own will in making conscious choices. Plus, how our whole idea of time management has evolved.
Yeah, and we'll get into a super useful tool, the time management matrix, figuring out how to dedicate more energy to things that are important but don't have those flashing red lights.
Learning the art of the strategic no, which is crucial.
Definitely. And exploring the principles behind what's called fourth generation personal management.
We'll also touch on clarifying your different roles, setting meaningful goals within them, planning your week in a way that actually works.
Making smart daily adjustments, and even the surprisingly impactful skill of delegation. It's quite a lot, but it all connects.
It's really about shifting from simply being busy to being truly effective in all areas of your life.
And right near the beginning of the material we're looking at, there are these two questions posed directly to you, the listener, and I think they're incredibly thought-provoking.
Yeah, they really make you stop and think.
The first one is this. What is one thing in your personal life that would bring significant positive change if you consistently did it, but you haven't?
And the second, sort of holding up a mirror to our professional lives. What is one thing in your work life that would bring significant positive change if you consistently did it, but you haven't?
Seriously, take a moment, let those sink in. We'll be circling back to them because I have a feeling that as we explore these ideas...
Your answers, and maybe how to actually act on them, will become much clearer.
Okay, so let's dive in. Starting with this core concept, this habit 3, putting first things first.
Right. And this idea, it isn't just about making a to-do list, is it? It's more profound.
It seems to be about consciously choosing to prioritize based on what truly aligns with your values, your long-term vision.
Exactly. It actually builds on the foundation of being proactive and beginning with the end in mind. Habits 1 and 2, basically.
So you take that vision you have for your life.
And you actively make choices to bring it into reality. That's habit 3 in action.
Got it. It's the bridge between thinking about what matters and actually doing it. The source material connects this to our 4 unique human gifts, or endowments.
Yeah, imagination, conscience, independent will, and self-awareness.
How do those empower us here? To put first things first.
Well, think of them as our inherent power tools for self-management. Your imagination lets you vividly picture the positive outcomes, which fuels your proactive efforts.
Okay, makes sense.
Your conscience, that inner compass, helps you figure out what truly deserves priority versus what just feels urgent.
And self-awareness.
That lets you step back, examine your patterns, your choices. But habit 3, putting first things first, really hinges on independent will.
Ah, the ability to choose and act.
Yes, act based on your values and goals, even when it's tough or, less appealing in a moment. It's the muscle that lets you choose the important report over, say, endless scrolling.
So habits 1 and 2 set the direction, recognize our power to choose.
And habit 3 is about actually steering the ship day to day.
Makes sense. You need to know where you want to go and believe you can choose how to get there before you can effectively navigate the daily stuff.
Precisely. And the source makes a really insightful distinction here between leadership and management, even when applied to ourselves.
Oh, interesting. How does it break that down for self-management?
Leadership, in this context, is described as more right brain. It's the philosophy bit defining what those first things are for you. Your vision, values, mission.
Okay, the big picture stuff.
Right. Management, on the other hand, is more left brain. It's the organization, the planning, the how-to, the execution, getting things done within a time frame.
So personal leadership is figuring out your why and your what, and personal management is the how and when of living that out.
You've got it. And effective self-management means constantly aligning your daily actions with that direction you've set, making sure your life reflects what you've decided is most important.
And the engine driving this, you said, is independent will. It sounds a bit like willpower, but maybe more.
It's more nuanced, yeah. It's the capacity not just to want to do something, but to make the choice and then act on it, to be proactive, not just reactive.
It's what translates the ideas from imagination and conscience into actual action.
Exactly. The source mentions Helen Keller as a really powerful example of this.
Her life is an incredible testament to overcoming obstacles and shaping one's destiny.
Absolutely. And while our daily challenges might seem smaller, the principle's the same. We have to consciously exercise that ability to choose and act based on our goals, even with resistance or distractions.
The source also links independent will to integrity. How does that fit?
Integrity here means being true to yourself, keeping promises, especially the ones you make to yourself, aligning actions with words and values.
So every time you follow through on a personal commitment,
You strengthen that independent will muscle.
Hmm.
And this connects to some really interesting research mentioned from a book called The Common Denominator of Success.
Oh. What was the key finding there?
Well, the author, E.M. Gray, studied successful people for years. And the common thread wasn't just talent or luck, though those help. It was that successful people make a habit of doing things that failures, frankly, don't like to do.
Huh. Why do they do them then?
Because their commitment to their goals, their values, their purpose, overrides their momentary feelings or lack of motivation. They do it anyway.
That's powerful. Doing the important, maybe less glamorous stuff, even when distractions beckon.
Precisely. And that requires both clarity on your first things, back to habit two, and the independent will to say no to the rest.
Which brings us to how our whole approach to managing time and priorities has evolved over time. The source talks about 4 generations.
Yeah, it's a neat way to look at it. Generation 1 was basic. Notes and checklists, just trying to manage being busy.
Keeping track of stuff.
Right. Generation 2 brought in calendars, appointment books, planning ahead, looking forward.
Okay, moving from reactive to scheduled. What about Generation 3? That feels like where most modern advice sits.
It is. Generation 3 is all about prioritization, setting goals short, medium, long-term, and detailed daily planning for efficiency, ranking tasks, ABC lists, that kind of thing. It's popular and useful.
But I sense a but coming.
Well, the potential pitfall is that an overfocus on efficiency and scheduling every minute can sometimes crowd out other important things.
Like what?
Like nurturing relationships, taking care of your well-being, allowing for spontaneity. You can become sort of a slave to the schedule, sacrificing effectiveness for sheer efficiency. Might lead to burnout.
That definitely resonates. A packed schedule doesn't always equal a fulfilling life. So what's this 4th generation then? It sounds different.
It's a fundamental shift. It actually rejects the term time management. The idea is you can't manage time itself, it just passes. What you can manage is yourself.
Manage ourselves.
By balancing P and PC production, getting results, and production capability, maintaining and investing in the assets that produce those results.
Assets like our health, our skills,
Yeah.
our relationships.
Exactly. It's not just about squeezing more tasks in. It's about ensuring we're sustainable, that we're taking care of the goose that lays the golden eggs, so to speak.
Which leads us nicely to the time management matrix, the urgent important grid. Can you break that down quickly?
Sure. It categorizes tasks based on 2 things. Urgency, does it demand immediate attention? And importance, does it contribute to your core goals and values? This gives you 4 quadrants.
Okay, quadrant 1.
Urgent and important. Crises, pressing problems, deadlines with immediate consequences. Living here constantly leads to stress, burnout, always firefighting.
Getting there. What about quadrant 3?
Quadrant 3 is urgent, but not important. These are often interruptions, some meetings, responding to every notification, other people's priorities landing on your plate.
The tricky part here, the source notes, is that people often think they're in quadrant when they're really in 3.
Exactly. They feel the urgency, but the task isn't actually important to their core objectives. It's just someone else's urgency.
That's a huge distinction. You can be incredibly busy in quadrant 3 and make 0 progress on your own goals. Quadrant 4.
Neither urgent nor important. Trivia, some busy work, excessive escape activities like mindless scrolling or TV. Some downtime is vital, but too much time here is just unproductive.
So we've got crisis mode 1, the land of deception or interruptions, 3, and the escape zone. That leaves quadrant 2, the sweet spot.
That's the goal, yes. Quadrant 2 is not urgent, but important. This is where the high-leverage activities live.
Like what specifically?
Proactive work, planning, prevention, building relationships, new opportunities, learning, exercise, recreation.
Yeah.
Things that build your production capability.
And the idea is that effective people consciously choose to spend most of their time here.
Absolutely, because focusing on Quadrant 2 actually reduces the size of Quadrant I over time. You prevent problems before they become crises.
It's like Peter Drucker said, right? Effective people focus on opportunities, not problems. They're prevention-oriented.
Precisely. It's addressing root causes, not just treating symptoms.
And thinking back to those 2 questions we posed earlier,
What one thing? Yeah.
the source suggests our answers, those things we know would make a difference but aren't doing, almost certainly fall into quadrant 2.
It's a light bulb moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're important, vital even, but because they lack that immediate screaming urgency, they get perpetually pushed aside.
There was that great story about the shopping center managers.
Oh yeah, that's a fantastic illustration.
Mm-hmm.
They realized building relationships with the store owners, a clear Quadrant 2 task, was key to long-term success.
But they were stuck in quadrant 1 dealing with daily operational stuff.
Right, spending less than 5% of their time on those vital relationships. So they made a conscious shift, decided to dedicate about a third of their time to that Quadrant 2 activity.
And the result?
Within a year and a half, profits quadrupled. Their whole role changed from enforcer to trusted advisor. It perfectly shows the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. Focusing on the vital few, Quadrant 2, yields the vast majority of results.
Wow. Okay, so if quadrant 2 is the goal, how do we make space for it? The urgent stuff feels so insistent.
This is where a crucial skill comes in. The power, the courage, really, to say no.
Saying no to the less important things, even if they seem urgent to others.
Exactly. You have limited time and energy. To prioritize your first things, you have to respectfully decline or defer requests that don't align with your core goals and values. It's about protecting your Quadrant 2 time.
That's often tough, though. Culturally, we're often pushed to say yes.
It is tough. The source shares that anecdote about the talented writer.
The one asked to take on an urgent but less important task.
Yes. Instead of just caving, he laid out his current critical projects and asked essentially, okay, which of these important things should I stop doing to make room for this new urgent thing?
Force is a conscious trade-off. Smart.
Very. And the source digs into why we struggle with this, why it's hard to prioritize and stick to it.
What are the main reasons?
A big one is lack of clarity. If you don't have clear goals, a personal mission that have a 2 foundation, it's easy to get pulled off course by whatever shouts loudest.
You get driven by external demands instead of internal values.
Right. And the source also talks about different centers we might have in life, being spouse-centered, money-centered, friend-centered, pleasure-centered, even self-centered.
And if your summer isn't stable,
You're more likely to be bounced around by Quadrant 3 and 3 pressures. Those centers often lack the solid foundation for consistent, values-based choices.
so what's the recommended anchor? The stable center.
A principle-centered life,
Yeah.
guided by timeless ethical principles and a clear personal mission statement. When you're rooted in principles, you have the inner strength and clarity to say no confidently when something doesn't align.
Which brings us back to 4th generation management. It seems to tie all this together.
It does. It takes the useful bits from earlier generations, planning, prioritizing, but puts them in that broader, principle-centered framework
Driven by mission, balancing importance and urgency.
with a strong bias towards Quadrant 2, focusing on overall personal effectiveness, not just task efficiency.
The source then lays out 6 standards for an effective management approach aligned with this. What are those?
Okay, first is harmony. Alignment between your ideals, mission, roles, goals, priorities, desires, everything pulling together.
Makes sense. Second,
Balance. Your approach should support development across all your key life roles, health, family, personal growth, etc., not letting one dominate to the detriment of others.
holistic. Third standard.
A clear focus on Quadrant 2, actively encouraging and helping you prioritize those important, non-urgent things, often through dedicated weekly planning, prioritizing by importance, not just the schedule's demands.
Got it. What are the last 3?
Fourth, being fundamentally people-oriented. Recognizing relationships often trump rigid schedules. Sometimes effectiveness means choosing connection over efficiency.
Important distinction. Fifth,
Flexibility. It's got to be adaptable to your style, your needs, life's curveballs, no one-size-fits-all rigidity.
and finally,
Portability. Your key planning tools need to be accessible, easy to carry and use wherever you are.
So harmony, balance, quadrant 2 focus, people-oriented, flexible, portable. That paints a pretty clear picture. How do we put this into practice? The source has a 4-step process for weekly planning, right?
Yes, a practical quadrant 2 focused weekly planning routine. Step 1 is to identify your roles.
Roles like parent, manager, friend, individual.
Exactly. Think about the key hats you'll wear in the coming week. Not an exhaustive life list, just for the next 7 days. What areas need your focus?
Okay, defines the landscape for the week. Step 2.
Select goals. For each role you identified, pick 1 or 2 important goals for the week. Ideally, quadrant 2 goals.
Things that will make a real difference in that role long term.
Right. Ask yourself, what's the most important thing I can do in this role this week? Try to link them back to your bigger mission or values if you can.
So, roles define the areas. Goals set the intention. Step 3.
Schedule. This is key. You actually block out time in your week for these goals. Treat these appointments with yourself seriously.
Like a meeting with your most important client, which is you, in a way.
Precisely. The source strongly recommends dedicated time for this weekly planning Sunday evening, maybe. A time to reflect, step back, and align the week ahead. This weekly view offers more flexibility than rigid daily plans.
Proactively carving out time for the important stuff across the whole week. And the final step.
Step 4 is daily adapting. Once you have that weekly framework focused on your important goals, your daily planning becomes more about adjusting.
Adjusting to.
Unexpected events, new opportunities, your energy levels, you're guiding the day within the strategic context of your weekly roles and goals. You might use simple ABC or 1, 2, 3 priorities for daily tasks to stay focused when things shift.
So the weekly plan is the strategy, daily adaptation is the tactic. This whole habit 3 really emphasizes needing both the vision and the discipline to execute, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It acknowledges it's often easier to get swept up by urgency or indulge in quadrant 4, but real effectiveness comes from consistently acting on your own chosen priorities.
And it distinguishes between efficiency, doing things right, and effectiveness, doing the right things.
Exactly. Fourth-generation management prioritizes effectiveness, guided by principles and conscience, seeking balance and alignment with your mission.
Embracing this seems to offer big advantages over just trying to manage time.
Definitely. The source highlights it's principle-based, giving a solid framework. It's conscience-directed, aligning actions with values. It allows flexibility without guilt. It's mission-driven, providing purpose. It promotes role balancing. The weekly perspective keeps you focused on what matters long-term.
And the underlying theme is prioritizing people and effectiveness, not just the clock.
You got it. Which leads to another key piece, delegation. How does that fit in?
How does delegation multiply effectiveness in this model?
It's presented as crucial. By entrusting tasks to capable people, you free your time for higher-level quadrant 2 activities only you can do, or that offer the most strategic value.
It's not just offloading work, it's about growth, too.
Yes, growth for them and increased capacity for you. J.C. Penney apparently said learning to let go and empower others was huge for him.
Shifting from a do-it-all-myself mindset to an empowering one.
Exactly. The source contrasts 2 types, Gofer delegation and stewardship delegation.
Gofer delegation sounds like micromanaging.
Pretty much. It's very directive. Do this way, report back. Focuses on methods. The manager keeps responsibility. Remember the funny story about the dad and the water skiing photos?
Yeah, total micromanagement frustration. So stewardship delegation is the alternative.
Yes. It focuses on results. You clearly define the desired outcome, give autonomy on the method, and hold them accountable for the result.
Takes more upfront effort, maybe.
Often, yes. Clear communication, setting expectations, but it's far more effective long-term. Fosters ownership, initiative, real growth.
What are the key components for making stewardship delegation work? The source lists 5.
Right. 5 key elements. First, desired results. Crystal clear, mutual understanding of the what, not the how.
Okay.
Second, guidelines. Establish the parameters, principles, rules they need to operate within, but don't dictate methods.
Third, resources.
Resources. Specify the support available people, budget, tech, organizational backing.
Fourth, accountability.
Accountability. Set clear performance standards and how success will be measured.
And finally, consequences.
Consequences. Define what happens based on the evaluation, positive and negative. Rewards, feedback, impact on the mission.
That framework feels much more empowering. The personal story about delegating yard work to the son illustrates this well, doesn't it?
Beautifully. Delegating the yard to his 7-year-old. It shows the process. Clear expectation, green and clean yard, accountability, checking in, resources, tools, training, trust, and the growth and responsibility that followed.
And it highlights adapting the level of delegation based on maturity. You might need more guidance initially.
Absolutely. It's not abdication. It's empowerment tailored to the person.
So whether we're managing ourselves or delegating to others, it all comes back to that quadrant 2 paradigm, focusing on importance over urgency.
That's the core message. Effective self-management isn't just about tools or techniques. It's an internal mindset, a way of thinking, consistently evaluating things based on long-term importance to your values and goals.
Not just reacting to the urgent noise.
Right. And as the source notes, all 7 habits of highly effective people are essentially quadrant 2 activities. They build that foundation for effectiveness.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. If we boil down this deep dive, what are the absolute must-remember takeaways?
I'd say prioritize based on importance, not urgency focus on quadrant 2. Cultivate your independent will to act on those priorities. Think personal management, effectiveness, not just time management, efficiency. Use weekly planning around roles and goals as your framework. And embrace stewardship delegation to multiply your impact and empower others.
And let's revisit those 2 initial questions one last time. What's the one thing in your personal life? And what's the one thing in your work life?
That would make a significant positive change if you did it consistently. Chances are, after this discussion, you see those things squarely in quadrant 2.
So reflect on those answers. How could the principles we talked about, prioritizing, planning, saying no, help you finally do those things consistently?
Yeah, what's one small step you could take this week using this framework?
And here's a final thought to chew on. How would consistently dedicating time and energy to the important but not urgent tasks fundamentally reshape your personal and professional life over, say, the next year, 5 years?
It's a powerful question. And to help you get started, the SORT material suggests some practical actions.
Like identifying one specific neglected quadrant 2 activity to focus on?
Yes, or actually drawing the matrix and tracking your time for a few days to see where it really goes. Compare perception with reality.
Maybe list tasks you could delegate and who you could delegate them to. Start thinking about that stewardship process.
Or commit to doing that weekly planning session this Sunday. Identify roles, pick 1 or 2 goals per role, schedule them in, then see how it felt at the end of the week.
Finding a regular time for that weekly planning habit. Looking at your current tools, do they support this quadrant 2 thinking?
Right. Adapting what you have or finding something new if needed. It's about finding what works for you within this principle-centered framework.
Ultimately, it boils down to recognizing you have the power to direct your focus.
You can choose to step out of the constant whirlwind of urgency and proactively build a life that truly reflects what matters most to you.
A life of greater purpose, effectiveness, and hopefully a lot less stress.
Every topic's got a taste, so like, share, and subscribe now. Your next plate's coming soon.